What is up, guys? We have just spent the last 3 days out on the water and the boys speared some epic fish. So we're gonna...
It starts like a dream. Glass walls, shimmering water, coral gardens glowing like living jewels in the dark. For many, reef addicts embodied that dream, a gateway into the mesmerizing beauty of the ocean and the thrill of bringing it home. But look closer and the glow begins to fade. Beneath the perfection lies something far less pure. The deeper you dive, the murkier it gets. A world of obsession, exploitation, and quiet tragedy hidden behind the glass. Because what if the very passion that celebrates the ocean is slowly hurting it? Behind every tank, polished coral, and every breathtaking video, something darker stirs just out of sight, and once you see it, you can't ever unsee it. From the start, Reef Addicts presented the reef lifestyle as glamorous. Turquoise waters, coral fragments shaped by quiet currents, divers gently removing specimens, and a community of hobbyists building ever more elaborate systems. The viewer is drawn in, impressed by the visuals and the promise of adventure. Yet in those images lies a second story, one of extraction, cost, loss, and unintended consequences. Have you ever admired a rare coral in a luxury tank and wondered what reef it came from and what was left behind? In the broader reef-keeping community, a murmur of concern has grown louder over time. There are threads and forums where veteran hobbyists speak of an industry more than a hobby, a system of rarity, hype, and price escalation that moves beyond simple love of the ocean. For instance, one thread notes that the very terms ultra, master, and named corals are charged at stratospheric sums, yet the criteria remain unregulated. That unspoken tension between beauty and marketplace sits at the heart of the story. Let's dive deeper. The supply chain for live coral, live rock, and rare species forms the first undercurrent. When a platform like Reef Addicts shows remote dives to pristine coral outcrops, it rides the edge of spectacle and sourcing. What happens when the viewer wants the exotic piece they saw? To satisfy that drive, collectors in remote locations may harvest reef material, ship it across oceans, and send it into high-end tanks far from its original home. The reef's structural integrity, micro-ecosystems, and the countless tiny organisms that lived among the coral. These are seldom visible in the shot of the beautiful frag. The result, a coral fragment in a tank, alive and glowing, while the reef it once belonged to is weakened, disrupted, maybe never the same again. Within hobbyist forums, there is blunt language. The hobby used to take some time for me. Now it feels like the rush to buy the latest morph is more important than the care of what you already have. And another, how many potential hobbyists are we scaring away because of inflated prices and rare piece obsession? Those voices underscore a second undercurrent, the pressure of consumption.
We got a couple of tank. Oh, I'll clean them off.
Reef Addicts as a brand thrives on aspiration, rare finds, premium content, and behind-the-scenes access. The hobbyist is encouraged to chase bigger, brighter, and rarer. With each new episode, each specimen revealed, the bar rises. And with that rise comes cost, financial cost, ecological cost, and emotional cost. For the hobbyist who once started small, the gaze of lifestyle branding can become overwhelming, transforming wonder into burden. When does beauty become a burden? At what point does the chase for the ultimate frag eclipse the purpose of creation and care? Indeed, some hobbyists confess that beneath the polished Instagram-style reef tank, there is failure. Corals lost in transit, tanks that collapse, budgets that balloon, and an emotional toll that seldom shows in marketing photos. One veteran lamented how discussions of such topics in the reef community are often shut down, as though any questioning of the system is forbidden. Third, the lens of the environment. Our wild reefs are already under siege. Ocean warming, acidification, runoff, and bleaching events all combine to weaken reef systems globally. The irony is stark. The very ecosystems that inspire reef keepers are themselves collapsing. When a brand presents remote reef diving and corals pulled for trade, we must ask, what is the net effect? Does a beautiful home reef tank offset the loss in the wild? The answer is complicated. A coral may live longer in a controlled environment, yes, but the myriad connections in the wild reef, hundreds of tiny creatures, and the interdependence, they cannot be replaced. Some ecosystem scientists warn that reef growth may shift into net loss this century under current environmental trends. The trade in wild-sourced corals thus sits uneasily with the ideal of protecting reefs. So imagine the narrative. A hobbyist watches a Reef Addicts episode. A stunning piece of coral glows under high-powered LED lights. The narrator's voice says, "We brought this frag from the remote island reef. Look at its vibrant color. Look at its growth potential." The viewer thinks,
For us. So, yeah, super success. Like my PB red, PB purple cod, got lucky.
"I can have that too." And so they do. But what is not shown, the reef beyond that fragment, extraction process, shipping stress, thousands of unseen animals affected, and the frag that died quietly in transit. The story looks beautiful, but if you really look, it is melancholic. If you owned one of those rare frags, would you want to know how many specimens of its kind died in the process of getting it, or where it came from exactly? We must also consider the commercial dimension. Brands like Reef Addicts are not only about hobby, they are about media, marketing, membership access, and community building around a premium reef lifestyle. That means the incentive is to produce spectacle, rare finds, and treasure-like frags. The industry around corals is sometimes described as the Wild West, pricing terms unregulated, novelty prized, consumer hype high. That's not to say every vendor or hobbyist is compromised, but the system is built such that the rarest piece, most vivid color, and the most exclusive coral can command high price and risk. Human cost emerges too. A hobbyist might plunge thousands of dollars into equipment, shipping, frags, maintenance, and hit the wall when the tank collapses. Multiple shipments arrive dead, and rare corals fade and die. The emotional weight of lost animals and lost money lies in the shadows. Meanwhile, new hobbyists jump in, drawn by the shiny reels and vibrant photos, but perhaps unprepared for the expense and loss. A Reddit post captured this bluntly. "My husband's hobby is ruining me mentally, him financially." It's a reminder that behind the glow of the aquarium screen, there are real people, hopes, and real risk. The tragedy of the story is subtle but widespread. Colorful coral fragments in tanks, yes, but also fragments of wild reefs lost. Hobbyists burning out financially and emotionally. The illusion of control over living ecosystems shattering, and a trade whose impact on wild systems remains murky. Yet the story need not end in despair. In many corners of the hobby, the call for change is growing. Sustainable aquaculture of corals, reduced emphasis on rarity for the sake of spectacle, and greater attention to environmental impact. Some hobbyists argue that what will sustain the hobby is not the latest ultra frag, but the stewardship of systems that last, propagation of animals that live for decades, and the return to simplicity and care. Imagine now a different scene. A reef keeper sits before a modest tank, no rare coral priced at thousands, but a small colony grown slowly, ethically, and patiently. This keeper watches it breathe, polyp by polyp, month by month. They know where it came from, how it was propagated, and how many likewise died. They know the reef beyond their walls still matters. They treat the tank as a micro-ecosystem to care for. In that quieter reality, perhaps the true magic of the reef lies, not in the rarest piece, but in the symbiosis, patience, and in the respect. What if the most beautiful reef tank you build is the one you don't show off, the one you quietly maintain with transparency, humility, care? In the end, the story of Reef Addicts and the reef-keeping world is not one of villains and victims, but of complexity, choices, and consequences. The sparkle of coral, shimmer of light, and lure of the unknown. They are real, and so is the joy. But so are the fractures. Reefs diminished, animals lost, communities stressed, and the hobbyists burdened. To acknowledge that is to carry the weight of responsibility. May the reef hobby become one where the brands we admire choose transparency over hype, the communities we build speak of conservation over acquisition, and where the tanks we create are not monuments to consumption, but tributes to nature's wonder and our duty to it. Only then can the light return to where it truly belongs, back in the oceans that gave them life. The reefs don't need us to own them. They need us to understand them and protect what still breathes beyond the glass. Let us know your opinions.